the Lord spoke to me. So the Lord has only audibly spoke to me twice in my life. And the first time was in grade 9.
Yeah.
And the last time was on that beat.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 116 podcast.
Welcome back.
Thank you for viewing, liking, subscribing. Today we have a special guest.
We do.
Would you like to introduce?
Yes, today we have with us Pastor Cheryl.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo!
Yay.
Hi.
All right. So let's start off. What's your positive of the week?
My positive of the week?
Yes.
So this week I was on Facebook Marketplace and I was trying to find like these chairs that we could use because we're trying to set up a room to film in now so we don't have to go everywhere.
Okay.
Anyway, so I was looking for deals on Facebook Marketplace. I found these 2 chairs and they were really nice, but they were $300.
Yeah.
But I was thinking,
Steep.
should I? Maybe, I don't know. And then I messaged them. They never responded. But then I found chairs that looked almost identical for $30.
Oh, wow.
And so I contacted
They
her.
were a bit dirty.
They were
just
very
a
dirty.
tiny
They were
bit.
very dirty. But I was like, you know what? Even if they don't fully come clean, like I could resell them for more than $30 afterwards. So messaged the lady, went and picked it up, and they were very dirty. She has children, and they were like kitchen chairs, I think she said she was using them for, and so they were very dirty.
Very
But
dirty.
then we cleaned them. I have this thing, it's called the little green machine. And it
Me
like,
too.
yeah, it works.
awesome.
It works really well.
Yeah.
So we cleaned it, and they look brand new.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my positive.
So what's your positive of the week?
My
Pastor Cheryl?
positive. This week I've been talking with my son about what's next. He's going into grade 12. He's not. He's finishing grade 12.
There you go.
And just encouraging him to go deeper with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been talking about Bible college. And then I got an email from a friend that actually Joshua's best friend's mom. And she was like, I'd really like to see my son go to Bible college. We've been talking about it. Do you think Josh would be interested in doing something like this? And I'm like, no way. This is totally a God thing. The timing is amazing. I am so on board with this. So anyway, I just talked to Josh and said, hey, your friend is also talking with his mom about Bible college. And he's like, yes. Mom, did you have something to do with this? No, really. It's totally a God thing.
Wow.
I met with her yesterday, and we both believe that it was like God's timing, even just connecting with each other. It was amazing to have hearts that are truly connected toward, seeing God's vision and His purpose in our families. And so, it was pretty positive. I'm excited.
Wow.
That is really
That's
exciting.
exciting.
Okay, Natty, what is your positive?
My positive of the week. We have been trying to get onto different platforms. So we have like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. Yeah, we're everywhere.
That's awesome.
But yeah, our Instagram, it was going, but it was very slow. Didn't pick up as much as our Facebook page and also our Instagram and our Facebook and TikTok. And so this week I decided, hey, like why won't I just post some reels, Instagram reels? And so I posted them thinking, hey, it's not gonna be, it's not gonna pop off or anything. At the time we had, I think it was like 220 followers.
Yeah.
And so I posted one reel, which was me talking about my haircut experience in Thailand. And I just posted it. It was like midnight. And I posted it thinking nothing would happen. And then the next thing I know, my phone is just blowing up with likes and people viewing it. And I think it already has over 4,000 views and like 400 likes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we ended up gaining over like 200 followers, and which was insane.
All
And
from
so,
one video.
yeah.
Wow.
And so that was my positive of the week, seeing, our message getting out there, and people liking it and following
Totally.
us. So yeah.
It was really cool. We're gonna have to post more reels now
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so back to Pastor Cheryl.
Mm,
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do now.
me. Am I going backwards? I am originally from Newfoundland. Yeah, lots of people go, really? And if you know Canada, then you'd realize that we have a whole different culture from the other.
Yeah.
So people usually
Definitely.
go, really? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I left home to go to Bible college to study theology. Actually, I left home to study missions. And ended up doing many different things.
Yeah.
But definitely did missions. I think that's another question you have. But I'm actually the family life pastor and women's ministry pastor here at Gospel Center, where you've met me, and Anita's worked with me for years, and I just love her. And yeah, that's who I am. I'm also a mother of 3 teenagers. Yeah. And my husband Wayne, he's a teacher. And yeah, we are just loving life and absolutely loving being here at Gospel Center and just embracing the culture of this community. And it's so various and I love it. And just seeing how God in every moment just connects and pieces and weaves together all the same meaning. But it's exciting. And I'm excited for what's to come. Like, there's no lull in this life. God just continues to give and surprise. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.
That's good.
That's good, yeah.
My question is, how did you end up getting into missions? Because that's not, a lot of people don't really go into that program and stuff like that. So how did you end up getting into your missions program at your Bible college?
Well, when I always wanted to do ministry. I always wanted to serve in some way. I remember as a child, my mother would take us to prayer meetings, and there would always be a lady that would encourage us to pray and seek the Holy Spirit. And I came to God at a really young age. My mother, the same night. And we would pray God's will. We would pray over, what's forward. Anyway, when I knew ministry in some form was going to happen. Not so much that I was going to be a pastor. But I remember when I was in grade 9, a missionary came to the church, and he had prayed over the whole group, but then just felt led to pray for different people. And I remember the Lord speaking to me and being called, I felt like called away. So called to a place where there was this beach, and the waves were crashing, and it was like there was a voice, and the Lord was saying, the fields, even though it was an ocean, the fields are white and ready for harvest, ripe and ready for harvest. And the next thing he said it was scripture, but he said, will you go? And I was like, totally. Like, I was always yes, right? And because I was just so excited about my faith, always. Like, it was something, and I think it was something that God did in me when I was very, very young. Because I see now that it's different than others of that age. So, yeah, I knew then that I was supposed to do something more than, I was talking about a teacher and physiotherapy. It was always about serving and loving people. So I know that that's the direction I was going to go. Psychology, it was all the same thing, but not thinking, pastoral. So anyway, when I was in grade 11, grade 12, beginning of the year, the Lord spoke to me again and pretty much said the same thing. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't anything like a voice, but it was that prodding of, you said you would go, you said you would follow. What are you doing? And I was more pursuing secular education at the time.
Okay.
And I'm like, I have to go to Bible college. Like, that's just, and even going, I wasn't sure what I was, I just knew I had to go. And so, I applied and I heard back before Christmas, and I was surprised by the excitement that I had to go. And so, I went to Bible college. My first year was in missions, and then I had a professor, Lyman Kulathungam, and if anyone who knows me is watching, you'll know who he is, because a lot of us had him. And just an amazing man of God, humble and smart, and he took the time to just talk with the students. And so he would go around and he would see you and he would say, I haven't talked to you in a while. You need to come to my office. And so he made you feel like you're important.
Yeah.
You know, you're in a school of hundreds and you're like, hi.
I know how that feels.
Yeah, I'm very shy. I'm so shy. Yeah, not anymore.
No.
Anyway, it was in one of those conversations that we talked about missions. I talked about the fact that I was a young woman and what was my means to get into these countries, and I wasn't even sure where the Lord was calling me. I assumed it was Africa because the vision in grade 9, you're trying to figure out where the Lord is calling you, and it has to be this. But my heart was always leaning toward there, because when I grew up, the needs were there. The needs are everywhere, but I remember specifically the needs were there. And so that's just what I thought I was going to do. And so Eastern is where I went. They had a program when you got into your third year, you went abroad to Pan-Africa Bible College. So that's why I chose there, that college. But then after, I was probably in my second term when I had the conversation with Kulathungam. I think I'm saying it right. Forgive me if I'm not. And he said, have you thought about education? Like, that will open the door for you.
Yeah.
Visas will be easier to get. You can still pursue kingdom ministries. You could still be a pastor. And that wasn't even really what my pursuit was anyway. It was just, Lord, I'm here. Show me.
Yeah.
Right? So I left his office and I changed what I was studying in year 2. And when I got into year 3, I thought I could still go to Pan-Africa Bible College. And then I was told, no, you need to be in the missions program for that. I'm like, no. I was devastated because I'm like, Lord, I came here because I thought this was the direction I was supposed to go. And but the Lord, he sees, he knows, he leads, he directs. Like, he knows, right? And so I licked my wounds, kept going, because I still felt education was the way to go. And I finished, and I wasn't done long. And then I actually had friends who were in South Korea, and they were working in academies, and they call them hagwons.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's another story.
Can you elaborate on that? We can talk about your time in South Korea. How long were you there for, and what sort of things were you doing?
I spent 9 years in Korea.
Wow.
Oh, and a year in Japan.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew that.
No, I don't think so.
That's a long time.
Yes, so I went originally to try out a year because I had planned to come back and do my master's at Ashland Seminary. So I had that all set up, and I stayed too long in Korea. A decade passed, and life was quite different when I came back. Even Canada was different. Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you there for the whole 9 years? You
Yes.
didn't come back?
We came back for my sister's wedding and for my wedding.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. That's a really long time.
It didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And even when we left, it was like, this is a huge chapter to be closing. But I went originally through the Bible college. They had some contacts there. And so I went the first year to teach in what you call a hagwon, or an academy.
Okay.
And while I was there, halfway through the term, I taught Bible, I taught drama, and English. An academy is like a after school, not really after school, but kids go there for their English.
Okay.
I went to a business and taught at Hyundai, and that's where I met my husband. And I taught adults in the evenings.
Wow.
So it was a very busy year. Close to halfway through, I met my husband. Not really, a guy. And he was funny and kind. And we got to know each other. Canadian people were like, "You're going to Asia? Going to marry an Asian?" Didn't happen. Got a Canadian from Alberta.
And you met him in South Korea.
Yeah. So anyway, we got to know each other, and he was working at a Christian boys' high school.
Oh, okay.
And they were hiring someone close to the end of the school year, and they invited me to come. So it was called, what was the school? Shinsung. I think we might be like, you totally got it wrong. I can't remember. Just a boys' high school in a city outside of Seoul called Anyang, Hello City. And it was a wonderful experience. I taught grade 10 English. I also had Bible study in the mornings for the sports kids, mostly golf.
Oh.
Yeah, these kids did school sometimes at different times, and everyone had to do chapel. They did have a chaplain there who was Korean. This school was a higher-end school that hired English teachers. A lot of their Korean teachers spoke English as well. And so if you know anything about Asia, they're very dedicated to meeting the bar in education. So high school is quite a stressful time, for the kids anyway. And they work all day in school, and then they go home, and the parents send them to academies or hagwons, and they study till bedtime.
Wow.
It's childcare, and it's life until grade 12.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
You take this terribly stressful entrance exam to university that determines, this exam will determine if you go to university, if you go to college, if you're going to be an electrician, if you're going to be a hairdresser. And this kind of...
It determines your life, basically.
Definitely. So quite stressful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were there 2 years, and then what did we do after? Actually, in between that, we came home and got married.
Wow.
Yeah. And then went back, and that was different, going back as a married person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
would be
bet.
different.
When I went there, I lived with a Korean family.
Okay.
And so they were able to teach me to write Korean and to, they have an alphabet type like us, but not. And so I learned how to read and write, and I used to call it baby language because I could totally communicate with their children. But this is my first year, so it did get better. And then my second year, I moved in with a high school teacher that taught grade 11, and she was from the States. And then when we went back and got married, Wayne and I, of course, moved in and finished our time at the school. Okay. And then actually we went to Japan for a year, Tokyo. Wow. Yeah, we worked at a women's college. Yeah, in Kitakogane. Wow. Yeah, just outside Tokyo. Oh. Yeah, that was a wonderful experience. Loved Tokyo. My husband really loved it. But I have migraines. I have migraines, and again, if you know me from past, present, you'll know. Yeah, she does. Well, Tokyo was like, I'm gonna die migraines. So I loved it. We had a great group of friends. We were involved in a church in Tokyo, and my students were amazing. But I would do life, and then I would collapse at home. And so we would have, earthquakes and funny story.
Tell us, please.
We just get to Tokyo, and we're going to sleep because we're tired, but our apartment is near the trains. Okay. And so sometimes when the trains pass, the apartment will shake. It was like a four, not duplex, triplex. Quad? Yeah. Is there such a thing? Quad. Is there? Yeah, anyway, so we're sleeping, and the room starts to shake, and I'm like, my husband's exhausted. I'm like, wait, is that an earthquake? And he's like, no, go back to sleep. And it starts shaking more, and then the drawers come out, and I can hear things falling. I'm like, I'm sure it's an earthquake. And he's like, it's not, Cheryl. You're imagining things. Go back to sleep. So I did. And I'm just like, oh, no. So the next morning, this guy that was down came up, and he's like, hey, guys, did you feel the earthquake last night? And he's telling us on the magnitude of it, and we're like, I'm like, go back to sleep. What? I says, oh, no. Yeah, so we go out, and the kitchen drawers are all out, and it was my first earthquake.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was, I was scared, and my husband told me it was a train.
It was a train.
I'm thinking of another time. We don't have cockroaches here.
No.
I've never seen a cockroach.
In Canada?
Yeah.
They do exist.
Are they here?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Not
but
that big.
not that big. Definitely not that big. But
So
they do exist.
that's another thing. I'm like, before I married Wayne, my roommate and I are in there, and they know how much I don't like bugs. So Denise sees the cockroach behind me, and she's like, her and Wayne are kind of talking with their eyes and stuff, and I'm like, what are you guys up to? And they're like, nothing, just don't turn around.
Oh, no.
And they're trying to get me to leave, and I'm like, what's going on, guys? And so they're trying to get this cockroach out of the living room, and it's about this big. And so they get it out, and they close the door, and they tell me, and I'm like, oh. That to say, I don't like cockroaches. So we're in Japan, same kind of thing. I'm sleeping, and my nose is itchy, and I'm like,
oh, no.
and I'm like, oh, and then I kind of have a bit of a cold, so I have I'm thinking, what? You know how you're half asleep and you feel like your nose is dripping up here?
Yeah.
I'm like, that makes no sense. And I wipe it away, and then I feel, there's something on me. And he turns on the light, and Wayne is like, there's nothing here, Cheryl. He's such a
calm person.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's totally something in this room.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't turn off the light. And then I look on the wall right above the bed, and there's this cockroach. And I'm just like, I'm just going straight out. So yeah, I don't like bugs.
No.
I've had one cockroach in Thailand fly at me. I don't know if you've ever seen flying cockroaches. They're so scary. And it's really loud, and it's like coming straight at me. I freaked out and ran out the room.
I've been to Thailand. I wasn't used to the geckos.
Oh, yeah.
We went there for vacation because when you work in the colleges, you get a February vacation and you get a summer vacation during the rains and the winter. But I didn't realize there's a gecko in the room. But the geckos are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
But at the time, I'm like, it's like a bigger bug. Like, keep it away from me. And so we rented this hut because how cool is it to rent a hut? But when we go in, there's like the first thing we see is this lizard on the wall. And I'm like, can you get rid of that? And the lady goes, no, ma'am. That is like an honor to have in your room. And I'm like, no. We went to the hotel part of it. And later on, of course, we've been to Thailand a couple times. We realized, yeah, that wasn't a big deal. We could have had that nice hut, but I was so terrified of them.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Little gecko wouldn't hurt a fly. Yes, it would. Anyway, yeah. So we spent quite a few years in Korea, and we worked at a couple of colleges. And the last place we were working before we actually came back to Canada was Handong Dae Hakyo. And my first day at Handong, the students, all the freshman students are coming in, and it's a Christian school. And so they start off with chapel. They have a pastor they have a law school and education, and, it's a normal school. But the professors speak English, and a lot of them teach in English, and so we had kids from all over the world. And I think we were there 4 or 5 years. But my first day there, I'm like standing up, waiting for all the teachers and the kids to go in, and I hear Cheryl, Shadow Sangjeon. And I'm like looking around like, here, that's teacher and professor's Kyosunim. So someone's saying Cheryl, teacher Cheryl, right? And I'm like, no one knows me here. And I turn around and there's a couple of kids that are freshmen going in, and they were my high school students from Anyang.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they chosen to come to Handong. And it was like such a nice meeting, and just watching them grow. And I loved working there. It was fun to work in the language department, but also to see how much the university invested in kingdom ministry. Yeah. So we stayed there until I was pregnant, had Joshua, my first son. And he was almost a year old when both my husband and I were feeling like it was time to go back home.
Okay.
Not because we didn't love where we were. We loved our jobs, and it couldn't have been any better. Like, it was wonderful. Wonderful experience, wonderful friends, great people. But we felt God calling us back to Canada. Yep.
Wow. I have a question about Tokyo. So was there like a really big cultural difference between Japan and South Korea?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Again, we loved Tokyo. Japanese people at that time, I can only give you my experience, but very polite. Very nice. Like, there was no really rude people that we encountered. But it seemed a little more Americanized.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Koreans, I feel like they were still, quite progressive in some areas, but they weren't, I didn't feel like they were thriving to be American. So I found in Korea, how can I say, the people were loud and in your face and in your life, and I love that. I'm from Newfoundland. It's like, that's my culture. But they loved you wholeheartedly, and if they didn't like you, they didn't like you wholeheartedly. Just to, and again, it's my experience.
Yeah.
Japan, I didn't see that as much. People were polite. And if they didn't like me, I didn't know, because
They were too polite.
you didn't see that kind of outburst or, they were very controlled. School is school, kids are kids.
Yeah.
That's true.
They're into different things, but, like the fashion was very European. Korea was the tip shoes, and the skinny jeans, and now this is 20 years ago. Sorry, you're Korean and you look nothing like that now. It was just different from here. I remember some students saying they were going to go for a summer to America, and what should they wear? I said, not that. Because the style at the time is not here.
Yeah.
So we kind of laughed together, but just amazing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I find cultural differences so interesting. Because also, like, people usually, like, lump some Asia and, like, Asian cultures, but they're all so different and so unique.
Very.
I find all these differences so interesting.
Yeah. The way they eat is different. The rules for picking up a bowl of rice or not eating the bowl of rice picked up. Like, there's just so many different things from one culture to the other. But yeah, it was so funny when I came back to Canada. I worked in a Korean church, so it was easier to start off doing that here. But then once I resigned that church and I went to a Canadian church. It was weird. It was like cultural shock. I remember a senior man introducing himself, and I went, 안녕하세요. And then I just felt my face go burgundy. I'm like, because that's just respect. And I'm like, oh my word, that was embarrassing. Hi, nice to meet you. So just getting used to not bowing anymore. That was funny at times. But yeah.
Yeah, the Asian culture tends to not like do any sort of like handshake or anything. It's very distant.
They use two hands when they do extend their hands, but I think that's changed because of North American and influence from other countries.
Yeah.
But I think it would definitely be less
touching.
Yeah.
I feel like the more dense cities and the more like westernized cities are, more westernized. So like they do the handshaking, they do the loud talking and stuff. But as soon as you head out to the rural areas, I could speak for Thailand because I was there a lot for a while. They tend to be quiet, very reserved, keep
Koreans.
their distance.
Not Koreans.
Koreans are opposite,
But yes, everywhere else. I agree. Yeah. I think they're just people that live life to the fullest.
How would you say your experience in Korea and Japan and Asia has shaped the way that you teach children here in Canada as well?
I've always loved children. At a very young age, I experienced knowing God, being filled with His Spirit, and even directing me into my future. So I've always known that the heart of a child is so important to guard it. The scripture says, out of the heart flows the wellspring of life. And so children are vulnerable and they're accepting and they're loving. But, how can we work with kids where we are entrusted to them and shape them, but not crush their spirits in the process of shaping them, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't work a lot with children. I worked my first year with little children, but the rest of the time it was university or college students.
Okay.
So I would honestly say it wasn't until I came back to Canada that I actually was more into working with kids. And that would have been in my second year, the latter part, because even when I came back I was working here in the city, Hanan Changno Kyohei. So it was, at that time, it was near Capilano,
Okay.
close to Millwoods. And I worked with the English congregation. The English and the Korean met at the same time in two different parts of the church. And I worked with the teenagers.
Oh.
So it wasn't until later when the children's pastor resigned and they needed someone to fill that role that they said, would you take that on? Because you speak English, the children speak English, we don't want to put a Korean. Well, they'd had English Sunday school up to that point, and I'm like, I love kids, sure. But that was my first experience pastoring kids. And then they had someone cover the youth. So you really build relationship with youth, you know, and so that being changed quickly, I think that was hard on some of the youth that I formed some relationships with.
Yeah.
I was still in the building, still working there, but that was hard. But for me, I had the children who were instantly loving, instantly adoring you, and you back, right? So the relationship is so different. How would I relate it to working in Asia? Well, I don't really think that contributes to, I think it's more my experience as a child that gives me the desire and helps me to see how much children can do.
Yeah.
And not to limit your expectations for them because they can do pretty big things. Yeah. So Asia would be more, it honed in on my teaching ability. It gave me confidence and taught me how to do things well. And not only that, but to do things last minute. Oh, can you do this? And when? For tomorrow. Oh, sure. So you always have to be on top of your game to do what you've been called to do.
Yeah.
But to do it with a willing heart. I know a few of my friends left and they'd had bad experiences. But it's sometimes, not saying it was them, but sometimes it's how you condition your heart and what you prepare yourself to do and how to respond when things aren't perfect. You know? Yeah. Philippians 4:8 says, fix your eyes, fix your thoughts on what is true, what is honorable, and pure, or right, pure, lovely, and admirable. And to think about things that are excellent and praiseworthy. And I think that contributed a lot to forming my ministry and even coming here and working with the kids. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good. It goes to show that, like, how powerful your thoughts are, because they're thoughts before their actions.
Exactly,
That's
right?
good.
Yeah,
it's true.
The mindset that you have going into any sort of place, area of ministry, work, definitely changes the direction, the experience that you have there. So
Yeah.
That's good.
really
That's so cute.
important.
I went to school in Ontario, so I did my internship in Niagara Falls, and then I worked at a Acer school there. And there was a little girl. She was actually the senior pastor's kids. And she was struggling with her math. And she was just so, sad. And her brother went over, and I'd never really seen this before. It was just so cute. And he put his arm around her, and like, this is like 5 and 6 year olds.
Okay.
Said her name and said, we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. And it was just matter of fact. It's my encouragement to you today. And I'm like, powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Very.
don't give up. Yeah.
It's those little things that count,
Sure
and build you up.
It sure is. Super cute.
That is very cute. Okay, I have another question. What was, if you haven't said it already, what was your most memorable experience working overseas?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Some are good, some are not. And I mean, like, not personal, but stuff that impacts you and you take it away with you and you go, oh my, like, that's going to be in my head forever.
Yeah.
When I was in Korea, I worked at a church as well as teach. So I always did that. It wasn't until I had Joshua that I had to choose between one or the other because it was too much.
Yeah.
But I remember, again, I worked at 3 churches, but the last one was in a city called Ulsan. And it was a port city. And so a lot of African oil companies would bring in their platforms to be built there. And so they would bring in their people and they would stay for 2 years or so, or maybe longer. And I remember starting at this particular church. So I worked for, there were mega churches. One wasn't. One was a small church. But the 3 others, actually I worked at 4, they were big churches, and I'm like 10,000.
Wow.
So we had a ministry within the building. We weren't part of it, but we were funded, working with an elder within that congregation. Anyway, we had, when I went there were probably less than 20 people. And a couple Nigerians, a couple Mongolians, and I remember exactly 12 Russians, and then a few Koreans. And that was the first week. And then the second week, you'd get a lot of different people coming from the factories. Okay. They may not speak English, but they don't speak Korean either. So they come to experience church, or they come because there was a ministry that took them shopping after and they got a meal. Whatever reason they came, we got all different types of all different ethnics in the church. I loved it. And I was only there 2 weeks, and then a company from Nigeria came in, and came like 100 people. So over 80 of them attended our church. And so our church went from like 20 to 30 to 100 and something. Within the month that I was there. It was nothing about me. It's just the way it worked. And we did life together. I loved it. We worshiped, we danced, we went and discovered things. The greatest highlight was there was a Muslim family that was a part of the group. Now, the Nigerians would meet midweek with their company members and pray with them. And so he had come to know about God more personally through that group, and he started attending the church. And then he decided, like, this was huge, because that's not something you can be a Christian, of course, in Nigeria, but they don't really allow you to convert.
Okay.
So anyway, he did, and his family came over from Nigeria to join him because of it, and we had a water baptism. Now, I worked for a Presbyterian church, and I'm very Pentecostal. So usually whoever I worked for knew that. It wasn't a conflict of interest until this one particular time when we wanted to do a baptism, and almost all the Nigerian group were actually Pentecostal, full gospel. And so they, as well as I, wanted to baptize them by immersion. And the senior pastor, who was very knowledgeable in the Word, we kind of just went back and forth with, well, the scripture says this, and I would say the scripture says this, and it was really about the heart. We needed to come into alignment, right? And so a Saturday night he called and he said, do it your way. And so He's a great man. But it was great because I knew that's what the people wanted. I mean, it's the condition of the heart again.
Yeah.
But I did want to follow the way Jesus did it. And so we went down to Ulsan Beach. And we sang and we had water baptism.
Wow.
There was another man called Anayo, and he was a pastor as well, but he worked with the Shell company. And he would sometimes stand in for me if I went somewhere on vacation or whatever, because I was there a few years. And he helped me with the water baptism, but it was like a dream. It was so anointed. And so that was probably my highlight. And having my baby. One of the hardest things was going back to talking about school. I remember Wayne and I were walking because we could walk to school. It was pretty close. And it was during exam times. And this boy, the teachers were all kind of down. It was a 3 or 4 story building. Mm-hmm. And one of the teachers shouted out to Wayne and said, "Don't let Cheryl see. Don't look." And I'm like, of course someone tells you not to look. You're going to look.
Yeah.
And there was a body on the ground. And I was just like, wow. Like, it was shocking.
Yeah.
But one of the kids had gone to the top of the building and jumped off to the top of the school. And if you read about, things, I was there during what they called IMF, when the finances was really bad, and the Koreans and the Japanese, different people, I'm not sure if it was Japan because we were in Korea, but IMF had to come in and help them through it. And when that happens, they have to agree to terms. Remember, I said I felt like in Japan they were very open to American things, and in Korea when I went, now 20 years ago, I think they were just trying to preserve their culture as much as they could, and so they weren't as open to Americanization. But when IMF came in, there were certain things that they didn't have control over anymore. They had to. International trade was one of them. So, and again, I'm not a politician, but I remember being there and that was happening.
Yeah.
And so it was a stressful time for the country, but also like it was exam time. So this boy, anyway, it rocked the school, and I wish I hadn't looked. It's good to listen to people. But it was heartbreaking. I remember the school everyone was heartbroken. But such a different culture in that I remember the next day the parents coming in and bowing, and they were saying, I'm sorry, because their son had done this. And it just shocked me because I was like, in our culture, that wouldn't have happened.
No.
We would have been like, it would have been different.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So those, I think, are the two. There's so many. But the two that I would say my highlight and probably the lower point. But super cool. Talk your ears off. There's so much. Part 2. We were in the last year, and we had gone to the beach with friends. We lived outside a city called Pohang on the university campus with the other profs, and we were surrounded. One side, you looked out your window, it's all rice fields, beautiful, and you could see the mountains in far, far distance, but you could also see there is a water as well, beach. So anyway, we went and we were taking pictures, and it was too cold to swim. And Josh was crawling around, he was a baby. And the Lord spoke to me. So the Lord has only audibly spoke to me twice in my life. And the first time was in grade 9.
Yeah.
And the last time was on that beach. And Wayne was over talking to the couple that we were showing the beach to, actually, and new professors at the school. And the Lord spoke to me, and he's like, revealed that where we were standing was exactly where the Lord had called me to be. And it was like, for such a time as this.
Yeah.
Thank you for being obedient. Like, I didn't hear that. I heard for such a time as this. And then it was like, I knew that God was happy that I'd been obedient. And I didn't know our time was ending there.
Yeah.
But it was like the last season of being there when the Lord said, this is where you're supposed to be. Thank you. You've been faithful.
Wow.
Yeah, and not even knowing that my season was ending there by choice. But that's an encouragement for those who the Lord speaks to you, but you don't see things happening, and you're like, Lord, did I really hear you? Was it bad food the night before? Like, what's going on? It's been years. But it's in the waiting, it's in the obedience, moving forward when you're not sure what you're moving forward toward, that God blesses you.
That's so good.
Yeah,
That is good.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
Okay, what would you say? Something that God has been teaching you throughout the week that
This
you would
week?
like to encourage? Yeah,
Recently.
that you would like to encourage our viewers with.
Oh, God is faithful. The beginning of the week, we always pray with the staff, and the Lord kept saying to me, invite His presence, invite the Spirit to be in this place. He is already, but invite Him, give Him authority over every area of your life. And so I've been doing that this week, and there are things that we don't see the outcomes. There are things that we have no control over, and there are needs and wants. And the Lord was saying to me, commit your ways to me. You've done this before, and see my Spirit move in the church, in the community, in your family. And so this is the beginning of the week, and it's not even the end of the week yet.
Yeah.
And I've already seen in a few encounters with others how God has already begun to just do His work, and His Spirit is just, He's what we need to be pressing in toward. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
We,
I like learning that story. I knew you had been to South Korea, but I didn't really know the details. So.
yeah, thank you for joining us. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for liking and subscribing. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.